Welcome back to our note-taking app series. In the previous episodes, we set up our project and implemented authentication. Now it's time to take it a step further by adding functionality to store and display notebooks using Firebase. Let's take a look at the plan from the first episode. Since we've finished the first two parts, we can cross these off. Now, if you haven't completed these yet, you can always go back and watch them before watching this episode. And in this episode, we're going to set up Firestore database, create the notebook context, create the notebook input interface, and display the created notebooks. First, we need to make sure our Firestore database is ready to store our notebooks. Head over to your Firebase console and make sure Firestore is enabled. If you haven't done this yet, it's a straightforward process. We'll structure our data with a notebooks collection. Each document in this collection represents a notebook that contains a field like title, created at, and user ID to associate it with the user who created it. First, let's set up our notebook context. This context will manage our notebook data and handle interactions with Firebase. Create a file named notebook context in the context directory. Here, we're importing the necessary modules and functions from React and Firebase, such as timestamp and adddoc and others, will help us interact with our Firestore database. We need to define a consistent structure for our notebook data. Let's define an interface for this. This interface ensures each notebook has an ID, title, content, creation date, and colors. This helps TypeScript understand what a notebook object should look like, providing better code completion and error checking. Next, we'll create a context to manage our notebook data and actions. We'll define a context type and create a context. The notebook context type interface lists the functions and the data the context provides. The use notebook hook allows any component to access the context values and functions, ensuring they're only used within the notebook provider. Now let's implement the notebook provider, which will manage our notebook data. We construct a useState hook, notebooks, which is an array of notebook data. The fetchNotebooks function retrieves notebooks from Firebase. It queries the notebooks collection for documents where the UID matches the current user's ID. Then it maps the result to our notebook data interface and sorts them by creation date. Next, we'll add functionality to create new notebooks. I set up some background colors along with some pastels that fit together to make each notebook item look good. You can change these to anything you see fit. Then we declare a getRandomPastelColor that returns a color. Then declare the addNote function that creates a new notebook. Here, the first thing we do is check if the user signed in order to avoid any trouble later. Then save the current date the notebook was created. Get a random color along with the matching tint color. Then we add this data to the Firebase collection. And only then we add this new notebook to the local state. Finally, we'll add functionality to delete notebooks. The handleDeleteNote function deletes a notebook from Firebase and updates the local state to remove it from the list. Now we need to wrap our application with the notebook provider in order to make the notebook data and functions available to any component that needs them. Now, let's see how this context is used in our home component. We start by importing necessary hooks and functions. We use useState to manage the title of a new notebook and useEffect to fetch notebooks when the component mounts. The handleAddNotebook function handles the form submission to add a new notebook. Here's a breakdown of the key parts. The useEffect hook. This runs fetch notebooks once when the component mounts to load the notebooks. HandleAddNotebook. This handles the form submission, adds the new notebook, and clears the title input. Now let's dive into the JSX. Initially, this component just had a simple title and a logout button, but now we're going to expand this further so we can create new notebooks. Below the title, there's a form element with an input and a submit button. When the user types the title and submits the form, it triggers the handleAddNotebook function, adding a new notebook to our collection. Next, we display the list of notebooks. For each notebook, we map over our notebooks array, creating a visual card for each entry. Currently, we haven't implemented the notebook page, so don't worry about the link not working at this moment. Each card shows the notebook title and a delete button. The delete button within each card allows users to remove notebooks when they are no longer needed. Notice that we stopped the click event from propagating to prevent navigating to the notebooks page when the delete button is clicked. If you don't include the stop propagation function, each click on the delete button will also act as a click to go into the now deleted notebook. I don't think users would like that. Finally, the logout button lets users securely sign out of their account, redirecting them back to the login or sign up page. As we review our home.tsx component, we notice an issue. The format function from the Date-fns library used to format our notebook creation dates isn't working correctly. This typically means one of two things. Either the function is not imported correctly or the library itself is missing. To resolve this, we'll install Date-fns. Let's open a terminal window and add library to our project. In your terminal, make sure you're in the root directory of your project. Then, simply run the following command, ensuring that our code will use the format function without any issues. Our home.tsx component can now format and display the creation dates of our notebooks correctly. In the media div of each notebook item, we'll add a paragraph element to display the date. Let's also take a moment to talk about how we integrate these features into our application using the app.tsx file. By placing Notebook Provider here, we ensure that all components within our app can access the notebook-related context. This means wherever we need to fetch notebooks, add new ones, or delete existing ones, we can do this seamlessly across our app. Now, when we run our app, we can see the list of notebooks, we can add new ones, and delete the existing ones. To enhance the visual appeal and usability of our notebooks list, we'll need to add some CSS styling. Instead of walking through each line of CSS, you can find the complete styling rules in the GitHub repository linked below this video. This repository contains all the CSS code used in our project, so you can easily copy and customize it to suit your preference. And with that, we completed our homepage for the note-taking app. In the next episode, we'll dive into managing and editing notes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.